So, I have a very important question for Valina. Oh my gosh. Okay, Valina, how old are you?
I'm 4 years old.
Wow. You are the youngest person ever.
I'm on vacation every single day because I love my occupation. Welcome back to the second episode of People in Policy, where we talk about political events, how they affect you, how they affect people around you, how they affect everyone. Um, and today's topic, obviously, about vacation. You know who won't be on vacation.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do know who won't be on vacation. It'll be those 12 countries and pending 36 countries that are on the list of Trump's new travel ban.
Yep. So that's the topic for today is a travel ban. Let's get into it. The first question is, what is the travel ban?
So, the travel ban is a ban that restricts countries or citizens from certain countries from traveling into the US. This does not affect where US citizens can travel, but it does affect who can come into the US.
Yeah, and it went into effect on June 9th. I think the idea for it was on June 4th, but it was enacted June 9th, and it's currently blocking people, refugees, from those 12 countries, being Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, something like that. Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, and 7 other countries with partial suspension, which means that only people with certain visas can come into the US from those countries. And then there are other exceptions like Afghan special immigrant visas, specific persecuted minorities from Iran. They're able to come over here, but that's kind of how the ban is working right now.
Athletes from those countries are also able to travel here. So I know that the US is expected to host the World Cup, so it won't prevent any athletes from those countries from traveling here. It also doesn't affect any Olympians who will be traveling into the US as a part of training or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we brought this up earlier, but fun fact, the president tried to enact something similar to this, a similar ban in his first term that was deemed illegal. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, why has the travel ban been passed?
Well, according to Trump, from a CBS article, the factors that were considered when enacting or when choosing which countries to ban were the large scale presence of terrorists, failure to cooperate on visa security, inability to verify travelers' identities, inadequate record of keeping criminal histories, and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays and other things. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That was a quote, by the way, from President Trump. I didn't say that at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is part of President Trump's aim at restricting like illegal immigration, like we talked about in the last episode, because that's been a lot of the topics nowadays.
Yeah, that's kind of what's been big in the US recently.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy. We look up topics, we can't really find anything else besides immigration
right
stuff.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big deal. He's been highlighting a lot of national security concerns, as you said before, especially things like terrorism. That's kind of the reasoning why this happened is like a lot of these places that are being flagged, it's because they have like anti-Semitic or anti-American terrorism or behavior among their citizens. And it's not all of them, but if some of them do, then it's those countries that are getting bans put on them or being flagged. And Trump has stated that, and also other reasons are that, like places with civil war or repressive rule or violence or things like that, or like tense relations with the U.S. or other countries are also undergoing a ban. But it's mostly countries in Africa or in the Middle East, which is something that we're seeing, and some opinions have come out about that being maybe discriminatory. But Trump states that there can be like changes to the ban, and it can be
Yes,
altered if
he
people
he did
do it.
say, if countries fix their visa policies, or if they piss him off some more, right?
Yeah.
It could go either way. And I think some of his reasons are quite ironic. Um,
Yeah.
it seems very stereotypical as to how those countries might be portrayed. And I feel like it's not giving the citizens, especially, the benefit of the doubt when it comes to um, traveling to the US or even immigrating here. But I guess that's kind of the whole point, is to crack down on immigration. So,
Yeah. So some recent advancements in the ban, or that's kind of the next question, or kind of what are those advancements?
well, like we mentioned earlier, Trump is considering adding 36 more countries to the ban if they don't alter some policies that he had written in a memo, many of which include that visa security that we were talking about. That's a really big thing. But what we're also noticing is that many of these countries are African countries. I think like either most or all of them are.
Yeah.
And they include some really big countries too, like Egypt and Nigeria. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the State Department says that, has warned these countries that if they don't take immediate action in changing their problems, fixing them in the next 60 days, then they'll be placed under a ban. And it's crazy because some of these nations are, they had completely good relations with the United States. They were just overall good nations, but they've just undergone that ban because some visa overstays and things like that. So there's always a likelihood that this is kind of discriminatory or um like
Targeting.
yeah, singling out certain people, um sometimes even for no reason. So
Yeah. There's definitely been some talk as to like what this could mean, not only for those countries but for like the US as well. I know that there's some medical research that's happening in those African countries right now. And the medical students on that research are wondering like what this could mean for their research. They're wondering what it could mean for the future of the medical field, just in terms of like sharing knowledge and
yeah.
whatnot. And I don't think it's crazy to say that it could branch out into other professions as well, some of these concerns.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. um but it's kind of been recognized that any advances could lead to lawsuits. And there had been a lot of different reactions, a lot of different perspectives. Like you brought up, like the medical field perspective. Um, and there could be a lot of changes. Overall, we're seeing a lot of changes in the United States and also in these other countries because of this ban and just their way of living now. So, yeah.
Yeah. In his first term, when Trump tried to enact a travel ban, it did face a lot of lawsuits. It went to court several times. And so we're kind of expecting the same thing to happen here. A lot of the things he's done, like regarding immigration, have been questioned whether it's legal or not. And I think we're going to see the same amount of questioning here. Um, and yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how the media feels about that because,
Mhm.
on one hand, those who are in favor of what Trump has done with immigration so far are um right, they like that he's doing this, that he's cracking down on like strengthening our borders, um and that he's keeping his word on like making sure that um you know that the US doesn't have any immigrants coming in because Trump's reasoning for a lot of the immigration policies that he's had in place was to keep criminals out of the U.S., international criminals, and to make sure that the U.S. is safe from any international threat. And so I think people who have liked what he's been doing so far with immigration are definitely happy with this.
Yeah.
There is a flip side of the coin, though. So
Yeah, a lot of people, maybe on the left or from these other countries, have felt that we've kind of lost the plot. Um,
yeah, it's
yeah.
like Love Island right now. There's no love. It's like Jeremiah and Huda in like 10 different forms.
Yeah. There's no love anymore between us and those like African nations, apparently. The African Union has expressed their concerns about the ban. They feel like communication has been lost. And yeah, their diplomats are not being consulted anymore. There's no way for them to come to a compromise because these African nations don't know what they're doing wrong. They don't know how to change these things, or at least what they do know. It's with all of the conflict that's been going on there, it's kind of hard for them to do that. So it's just kind of like they're really beefing right now.
It's giving your ex situationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and even the International Rescue Committee, a humanitarian aid, has also expressed their frustration with this ban. I'll pull up that quote. Oh, I thought you were eating the microphone. So yeah, they said that they are deeply concerned about the humanitarian consequences of this quote discriminatory and harmful ban. The primary reason for this is that many of the countries are on the IRC, or the International Rescue Committee, a 2025 emergency watch list, which basically means that they feel, or that they're noticing, that in those countries there's a lot of human rights that are being violated, and they're concerned as to what this can mean. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of concern from this side, right? It's not just um you know the nations or like the public.
Yeah.
There's also like several organizations who are finding trouble in this. A lot of people have also pointed out that the first 12 countries that were enacted were primarily Muslim countries.
Mm-hmm.
And some people felt that maybe it was stereotyping or targeting, maybe just because of the stereotypes, especially in America, that come along with being Muslim. I feel like, especially after the 9/11 attacks, that definitely like increased hate towards that group of people. And so some people are thinking that this travel ban on those countries is also following that same mindset, which is unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna change like attitudes in this country, which is gonna be a problem because there are a lot of Muslim people living here, and there are a bunch of families who are being hurt by this kind of thing, either through the stereotypes or through the fact they know people in those countries, they have relatives and family in those countries. So people have been kind of raising awareness on social media, or the International Rescue Committee has been posting their articles and allowing resources for research and educating yourself and donating towards these refugees and helping refugees find new places to go because they're no longer really accepted here, which is kind of a bummer because our history is kind of accepting people and allowing immigration and refugees to come here seeking asylum. And we're not really doing that for them anymore.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are affected. People everywhere are affected. People in the US, people in those African nations, but it's especially them because they're living in harmful circumstances and are subject to violence or discrimination or anything in their country. And we're not really allowing them to come here anymore, which is changing a lot of things. It's changing our relations, it's going to change our economy because, like we talked about in the last episode, we're no longer getting as many workers. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and what sucks is that I feel like the innocent civilians,
Mm-hmm.
who are not taking part in maybe the corrupt governments or the civil wars that you mentioned earlier, which might be a reason for why some of these bans are in place. Those civilians who are not involved are kind of like getting caught in the crossfire, right? So, they're struggling because, they don't want to live at home because it is corrupted with war or bad government, right? But now they're also not welcome here, which makes it harder for them to find a place where they can go.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think this ban is going to happen is it's going to force people to just stay there because if they don't know where else to go, they're kind of just gonna be stuck,
Yeah.
and that's definitely horrible. And I think that's why there's a lot of concern from those humanitarian aids and organizations, because they recognize that like a lot of these conflicts almost like don't really have anything to do with the civilians there, and they just try
Yeah.
to get them out, right? They try to get those families out because there's it's just not just adults, right? It's also children there.
Yeah.
And so that's just a really big thing of how that's going to impact.
Yeah, and this is causing a lot of unrest for their families here in the United States who aren't really able to help their relatives anymore or really contact them. They're kind of cut off from them. And so they know that they're still suffering in that country. They're not really able to help them. And that's why we're seeing things like protests like we talked about in the last episode is because of that unrest, and we're showing our support for those immigrants or refugees. And yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like a lot of emotions just in the US, right? Because it seems like so much is happening all at once, right? We have you know immigration that is targeting primarily Hispanic people, and we're seeing those families kind of being pulled apart, which is what sparked the No Kings protests and kind of like the protests that have been happening, right? And then on top of this, right, what it seems like is that you have people here who still have family in those countries, who are still in those civil unrest places, and who now can't come here, which is sad for those families, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially because there's like no guarantee for the safety of those individuals, of those family members anymore. um and yeah, it sucks because Valina and I both have friends who have family members in those places that we listed earlier,
Mm-hmm.
who maybe go to visit those family members, or maybe who can't even visit those family members anymore because of how bad the conditions in those countries have gotten,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's really important to humanize the whole situation, especially because this policy is kind of painting a narrative that anybody who comes from those countries are terrorists, or like they're criminals, and that's simply not true. Like it may apply to some people from those countries,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely like the generalization of all of them is, it's hurting the people there, it's hurting the people here.
Yeah.
um and yeah, it's hard that that like somebody that you care about is going to be affected
Yeah.
by these policies.
And even if you feel like you're not directly affected by this kind of thing, the United States alone is going to face a lot of changes, and a lot of backlash, a lot of changed perceptions by other countries, by people here. We're kind of um, showing our distrust with the government and these different policies. And we don't have those positive relations that we used to have anymore with those other countries. So that's really going to change our workforce, our people here, and attitudes towards us as a nation. And Yeah, though not everyone is directly impacted, everyone can make an impact. Everyone can raise awareness using their platform if you have one, or um,
Donating to
donating.
organizations.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially if you feel like this does not impact you, or even if it does impact you, um, research about it, stay educated. That's kind of gonna be like the big thing, right? Is you want to make sure that like the information that is like presented to you with like as little bias as possible, or as um, delivered as least emotionally as possible, just because that is something that in America we're seeing people are very easily swayed by is emotions, and obviously it's not hard to be swayed by your emotions. But when it comes to like policies and politics, it can be very easy to be confused or even like swept up in like the emotional toll of it all. So just make sure to stay educated.
Mm-hmm.
Get your resources from like a wide variety, right? Don't
Yeah.
just read one article, read a bunch.
Yeah.
Or if you do just want to read one article, try and stay like as center leaning as possible, like BBC or NPR. They are very good at remaining as neutral as possible and kind of letting you come to your own conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And education is really what could make or break the next 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just keep your mind sharp.
Yeah, and you can keep watching us because we're always staying factual and unbiased. So, yeah, and you can listen to our podcast wherever. Um, yeah, it doesn't really matter. We're always here for educating people in an easy, like fun way. So, yeah, just stay educated. If you can donate, do that to places like International Rescue Committee. Consult friends who you know might be affected, because you know everyone is dealing with something, and this could be the thing that your friend is dealing with. So
Yeah. Yeah, just stay very aware, right? It's dangerous to be ignorant at a time like this. So keep your mind sharp, baddies.
hey, yeah.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Thank you for watching.
Yeah,
Tune into the
that's
next
it.
episode.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.